Today's interview is with Jason Muth. Jason owns some short-term rentals, which is a cool model that I'm very interested in myself. And he talks about why he likes it, the success he's had, how that happened, and kind of talks us through the process of taking over one of these properties and what he did and what that looks like, along with some advice on for anyone who's looking to do short-term rentals. So stick around for all that great information. Hello and welcome to Wrestling with Real Estate, where we look to chokeslam all your real estate problems. I'm your host, former WWE wrestler and now Cirque du Soleil performer, and of course, multifamily real estate investor, Barri Griffiths. Now today we're joined by Jason Muth. Hey Jason, how you doing, man?
Barry, how are you? Nice to meet you on camera.
Yeah, we met off camera, but here we are live and unscripted. But yeah, excited to have you on. We're connected through a good friend of both of us, Cal Curtin. So Cal, thanks for the connection. But we're talking beforehand and excited to dive into your story and what you've been up to in real estate. So before we kind of dive into that, do you want to kind of give us a brief intro into what you've been up to and kind of a bio about yourself, maybe quickly?
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. So my name is Jason Muth. I live here in Boston, Massachusetts. I've been here for, it'll be 20 years in June. I've spent my whole life in the Northeast, like between New Jersey and here. And, Boston's become home. When I moved here, I moved right into the city, and I used to live in suburbs, in the past. And I said, if I'm going to move to a city, I'm going to move to a city. And New York City was a little too much for me. So Boston was the right size. And I moved in here, got a place in the south end of Boston with a couple friends for a couple of years. And then 2 years later, I decided that it was time to buy some real estate. So I bought a place in a neighborhood called Southie. And if you've have a lot of people here who have known some folks in the past, like Whitey Bulger used to live here in South Boston, and there's still people here who know him and know the family. So Southie has some long storied history, according to a lot of folks from Hollywood, and everyone here knows Southie, and it's become a really hot neighborhood. So I think I got really lucky when I started doing real estate. It was really just because I bought a place. We all kind of have to live somewhere. And everyone I talk to about buying their first place, like they might not even know that they're becoming a real estate investor when they do, but they are. I mean, you're starting to build equity. So long time ago, I bought a condo in Southie, and I mentioned that because the neighborhood just got so hot and so almost overbuilt over the past, say, 15 years. When I came in, it was this first wave of redevelopment. There are a lot of the buildings here in Boston that are triple deckers. So essentially it's 3 units, boom, 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 1, 2, 3. You see them all over New England. So a lot of them got renovated. The people that used to own them, they cashed out, moved out of town. Developers came in, renovated everything. And I lived there for about 10 years. And when I moved out, it was because I was sick of not having a parking spot. And, I just needed some more space. So I was well, at the time I was not even engaged, but, we were probably gonna get married in a couple of years. So we decided to get a larger place. And I realized how much the place appreciated in price. And, it was because the neighborhood got really hot. It withstood the downturn back in the late 2000s that a lot of markets saw. And I was able to turn that money into a larger place, which I gave you a quick tour of the roof deck and everything here. And we bought this place pre-construction, legitimately driving past it, and I was like, I want to go look at that one. And we looked at it and put an offer in before it even hit the market, and I was able to negotiate it. Like I couldn't even believe it. I actually got 10 grand off the price, but I did. That's back when you could actually put in offers below asking, right? So you start to get the bug when you start trading up in real estate a little bit. At least I did. And through this whole time, I've worked, a W-2 job. Like I've just worked full time my whole career. I work in digital advertising sales for a large media company, and I'm in charge of the digital sales group here in Boston. And you just keep working like it's your regular job, and the real estate stuff is on the side. Um, you know, One thing that I want to talk about on this, as we were, kind of chit-chatting beforehand and we traded a couple emails, was short-term rentals. And that came into being for me a couple years after buying the second place. And I was actually just looking up when I joined Bigger Pockets, because I think that a lot of people that listen to this podcast that get into real estate, they know Bigger Pockets. I mean, I think it's pretty common for folks that are probably listening to this right now, and people that are just getting into real estate. I always mention Bigger Pockets, and a lot of them, their reactions like, "What's that?" And it's still amazing to me that they don't know what that is yet. Because I'm like, "How have you not found Bigger Pockets? They have 2 million members." But I joined Bigger Pockets in 2015. So I must have really started thinking about real estate investing as kind of like a wealth building platform about 6 years ago. And it kind of coincides with a house I remember we were looking at across from my in-laws' lake house up in New Hampshire that was for sale. And I just couldn't pull the trigger on seeing how I was going to make it work to buy a second place. And I knew nothing about renting it out short term, and Airbnb really wasn't a thing or anything. And I kind of filed that away until the next summer when we saw another place for sale down the street. And I just said, I think I want to go look at it. So, it was almost a whim that we found ourselves buying this second home, just having a gut feeling that the prices are right. I mean, like, we didn't do a spreadsheet analysis or anything. And boy, it's been like a home run. Like that property has done so well to the point that, I got a second Airbnb down on Cape Cod in a vacation town called Provincetown, which is, way the tip of Massachusetts. Like, you could actually drive from P-Town all the way out to California. I think I should know the route, but there's a route that goes across the entire country, goes all the way to P-Town. And then we bought some land, and then we started going to real estate meetups and, like doing some syndication deals, and like, it just kind of spiraled upward from there. So, it's, that's a lot about me, like, and I'm sure we could unpack a bunch of those things, but it's kind of funny how it all comes together. I didn't get into this because I'm a realtor or an investor or a carpenter, or I don't really have a trade that's connected to real estate. I mean, I'm married to a real estate attorney who's also a broker. So, I kind of have that. But beyond that, it's really just found my way in, and it became a whole kind of second gig.
Yeah, and what's cool about that story, and I hear it quite often, is that that first property leads to a lot of stuff to a lot of people, right? Not only financially, but just also that getting comfortable with real estate. And it was your primary residence where you lived, which is fine, right? And I think that happens to a lot of people. They'll buy their first house that they live in, and then all of a sudden the value goes up, right? And real estate doesn't always go up, right? So anyone listening to this, don't buy a house thinking that in the next 2 years it'll be worthwhile. It could be, but it's not guaranteed. There's nothing guaranteed about that. But what that is they'll be like, wow, so we bought this house and then we got up in value, and then we've realized that home ownership wasn't scary, and I'm buying, signing on loans and all this stuff. And you go through that process, and it really gives you that, I guess, kind of proof of concept that real estate is a cool thing that you can do, right? And it doesn't need to be a full-time thing like it has been for you. You do it on the side, right? You have your W-2 job and you're doing it on your side, but it just really proves to you what is possible. And also, I think, if I'm correct, you sold that first property, right, and moved into what you're doing now. You just kind of moved up as well, right? You took that condo, and now you have, I don't know how many bedrooms, how many.
I wish I was able to keep it, but the numbers were not there yet. And I was not a short-term renter. I wasn't renting out short-term yet. So I couldn't prove that I was a landlord, and that is one great thing also that I've been able to parlay, is that the more years that you have, income on your tax return that shows that you're renting out property, the more lenders are going to look at that and say, okay, this guy knows what he's doing. He's been a landlord before. At the time, my lender that I worked with to buy this condo, they wouldn't take a potential rental into account for that first condo. So the numbers were just off. Like, I literally just missed it, and I wish I kept the money in that place, because like, it definitely would have been a cash flowing cow. But money is not limitless. Like, I needed the money for the down payment here, so I just moved it over into here and got a new mortgage. And we definitely upgraded space wise. We moved into a different part of South Boston. Like, I still live in Southie, but we're in a part of the town, of the neighborhood called City Point, and we're right across from a park. like they're never going to build on the park. I mean, like, so like, I know a building's not going up and going to block our view because it's a city park. So, we thought it was a pretty, and at the time it was an expensive condo. Like it was one of the most expensive ones in 2013 in this market on a price per square foot. But one thing I will say is they had it wrong in MLS. They 100% did. Like it was listed in MLS at about 200 something square feet less than it really was. And in Boston, that's a big deal. The room that I'm sitting in right now is considered a mechanical room, right? That's how they got away with putting this room on top of the building. But all we have in here is the circuit box. So it's living space, right? But it was not included in what they listed on MLS, but the condo docs actually do include this. So, I knew that the number was wrong. I knew that the price per square foot didn't matter because I knew they weren't factoring in the extra 250 that were indeed on the condo docs that got filed with the city. So, if I ever go to sell this place, like, you go to sell it as almost 1,400 square feet, not 1,100. And, that's why I kind of felt good about upgrading because, we all get nervous. Like, you take on debt, right? I mean, you've done it before. That very first time you're signing the papers to the mortgage, you're like, oh, where am I going to find this money? Right. And then that next time that you sign the papers for that first investment property, you're like, what am I doing here? Like, was I drinking last night and I decided to go do this or what happened? And somehow it all kind of works out. And yes, real estate does not always go up, but and Boston's been on a tear lately. It just has.
Yeah, and you mentioned it there initially, that you then went on to, from that property that you own now, to buying. Was it bought as an investment property? Or was it bought as a property that you guys were going to vacation as just strictly vacation rental? That was not going to be a short-term rental at all.
We bought it as an investment. We did. I mean, like we do use it, and we love going up there. It's almost 2,000 square feet. It's 3 bedrooms and a study. So we kind of have it as a 4-bedroom. It's across from a lake in New Hampshire, small lake, but still boating and everything on the lake. And we bought it knowing that we were going to use it because my in-laws have a place down the street. And we just thought it would be a good idea to have an investment, and the price was right. Like we negotiated that price as well. But I think also we bought it saying we can make a go at this and we can make a go at doing some short-term rentals. And I literally knew nothing about it going into it. So it was just starting from scratch. It was watching videos, launching an account on Airbnb. We do Airbnb and Vrbo. So I think they call it Vrbo now. It's VRBO, but Vrbo is what they want us to call it now. They've rebranded. And I just threw it up there, and you kind of find your price point, you find your footing, you figure out the platforms, and it eventually works for you because their marketing engine is just amazing. I think it's worth every penny with the amount of money that I pay for both those services in terms of how much they funnel my way. But we did buy it knowing that we were going to be renting them out. Like I'm not a huge proponent of buying a second property as a vacation home unless you're like completely loaded, like tech bro money, right? Like .com billionaire. Like if I'm going to buy another property that is going to be a vacation home, if I'm not renting it out, then it's a liability. It's a fancy place that I'm spending my own money when I could go rent somebody else's great Airbnb for a week and then rent a different one every single year. I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not a big fan of that. If I think that for us, they work because we're able to, not just offset with revenue. We're able to make money on the 2 places that we have.
Yeah, and that's really cool. And I think if you're buying a vacation home anyway, right? Why not, right? Unless you're going to be there 8, 9, 10 months of the year, right? Which I don't think it's not a vacation home then, right? It's a primary residence at that point.
Yeah.
But like, why not, right? Set it up, and people might be scared about people, stealing or trashing the place or whatever, right? Because if it's your second home as a vacation rental, it is kind of your home, right? I can understand it's not just an investment property. You want to go stay there, but maybe speak to people's fears about that, right? I think that's a big fear that people have.
I think it's a great question. And I think it does hold people back when they don't want other people in their space. I don't want people sleeping in my bed. You just kind of have to get over it. Like, once you get over it, you don't have to worry too much about things breaking, things being taken. What we do is we set our prices high enough. And I think that filters out a lot of the bad renters. Like I would rather take nobody than a bad renter, on certain days. Um, and over the years, we've increased our price steadily. This past year, I increased my prices a lot, and the calendar filled up. I mean, like because of the pandemic, everyone's looking to do local vacations, and it's not as much price gouging as finding the right value. Like I'm finding how much the actual place is worth on a nightly basis and what people are willing to pay for it. And I found that I can keep increasing and increasing and increasing until I reach a point that I don't have renters, but I haven't found that number yet. So I keep increasing the price. And when you do that, you keep making it more difficult. Like you change your requirements from 2 nights to 3, you make it 5 nights to 7. Like, so you're weeding people out that aren't willing to go under your own criteria, and then you eventually find renters that, not even eventually, you find renters that are willing to rent your property under the terms that you're willing to rent it. um, and then you just communicate with them, like if you make it clear that you also use the property, we treat it like ourselves. I found that everybody really treats it like their own. Things happen, right? There's a burn mark here. I had people run into my back staircase twice now, and I had to replace a board twice in 4 or 5 years. Carpets get dirty, so you buy a carpet cleaner, right? Things happen, but nothing to the point that it's not fixable, and nothing to the point that it's an ongoing issue. So I'm like well past that, and we don't personalize the space, so it's not like we have photos of ourselves and our daughter all over the place. We don't we don't do that. Like we make it, it's kind of a clean slate. I mean, it looks nice. It's really, I'll have to send you links to it after this, just so you can kind of see our photos and everything. But it looks like a lake house. Like we have nice veneers on the fireplaces. Like the furniture is comfortable. It's very kind of woodsy, neutral colors, and people treat it like their own home is what we've found. I think it would be a little different if I was renting out this property nightly, like every night. Like I know that some people's Airbnb strategy is to just fill up the calendar as much as possible, and sometimes they're turning it over every night or every 2 nights. I could see those places getting a little more beat up and people treating them a little bit less like a home. Um, but we're over it. I mean, like it's not a big deal to us. We allow pets. Like not everyone allows pets. And if you're not allowing pets, you are losing a lot of potential renters. I can guarantee it. Our place in Provincetown allows pets, and not as many places down there do. So I think we get a lot of rentals as a result of just allowing pets. Um, I put it in there that we allow dogs, like up to like New Hampshire, we let, 2 well-behaved dogs. I think the Cape is like 1. But people always ask, hey, I have a second dog. Is that okay? And I'd rather you ask me than just assume. I've even rented to some people that have cats that travel with their cats, and I'm pretty allergic, but I'm kind of over it because I wanted the money. So plus I knew I wasn't going to be there right after. I
Right.
mean, it's going to
Yeah.
get cleaned. So, like I got over that quickly, but I'd rather them ask, like I'd rather it be like, hey, I can't do this. And then if they ask, then it's like you're doing them a favor, you're doing them something special, and they're even more loyal to making sure they have, that they treat your place nice. So
Yeah.
it's not an issue at all from us.
Do they do you charge anything? What do you put any precautions? How does that change anything at all with if they have a pet, if they
We
don't?
we we charge a pet fee. A nominal fee. It's $75 for the whole stay, regardless if it's 2 nights or 7 nights. Verbo adds it on automatically. Airbnb doesn't, and I always forget to charge it. So, like if people ask, maybe I add it on. I wish there was a way that they could automatically, and maybe I don't know this, but I don't think there's a way that it could be added on automatically. I wish there was, and maybe I'll go back and take a look after we record this and see if I'm missing out on additional revenue. But I'm a
Yeah.
little bit of a softie there. Like they'll mention it like in their initial message to me that they're bringing their pet, and then I probably won't charge them for it because I'll probably forget.
Is there a way that they? How can you check? Because if they had a pet and they brought a pet and you didn't know, apart from maybe having
It's
hairs, or
fine.
you wouldn't know. Is there a way? Do you
I
have?
wouldn't
Do you,
know. I mean, like I probably wouldn't. But to me, it's not a big deal. We had our dog passed away last year. After we had her for like 13 years. And she loved both the places. So I'm very dog friendly. If people want to bring pets, they bring pets. I mean, like I'd rather them ask though. Like I'd rather them say, hey, we have this many pets, or we have this one is going to be crated the whole time. Like I want them to think about like having the pet there and then just mention what they're intending to do. And usually people are pretty good with communication. Like you could tell a lot from renters in those initial messages that they send over to you, like on the platforms. And, you can get a sense from people if they're going to be high maintenance, um, if they're going to be low key, if they're writing in complete sentences and asking questions, and then that's usually a good sign that they're kind of an engaged renter. And then I'll tend to engage with them a little bit as well. I think sometimes I over communicate, and I certainly know when to stop communicating if I already have the sale, because I'm in sales. So I know that you don't want to oversell if you've already made the sale. But I want them to feel good about their decision. I want them to be able to ask questions freely of us, and reach out to us whenever possible, or whenever they have questions about, can I rent a canoe nearby? Do you know places that are great for dinner? This or that. I'm always there for questions from the people that are renting, and I do think that also lends to getting good reviews. So it's the magic with these platforms is it's a positive feedback loop. I'm telling you, like the more you put into it on Airbnb and VRBO, like the more you get out of it. And it sounds so cliche, but it's so true.
But what do you mean by that? The more you put in, the more you put into the
Me,
time on the property or the actual platform itself?
the platforms, yeah. So I mean, like take their recommendations into account. Like adjust your rates throughout. Like sometimes there'll be opportunities to adjust your rates. This year I did something I've really never done on Airbnb before, is I set my prices on the higher side, which I want to do because like I want to see if I have takers at the high price point. If I don't, you can discount your property on there. And if you discount it at least 20%, then you get a new level of additional marketing services. Like they'll email it out to people. So I did a lot of that this year where I was, setting my property price high, and you have to kind of set it high for a little period of time. You can't just jack the price and then discount it, but you have to set the property price high for a longer period of time and then start your 20% discounts. And man, my place is filled up. Like, and I don't know if it's because I was getting marketed more, like if people were, getting emails with my place being, spotlighted as part of the email, but uh, I was, and I didn't discount it so low that it wasn't worth my time to get those renters. It was still like the right price point that I wanted, but I invested the time in price strategy on both those platforms, and it's really turned out well this year. I invested the time in writing up great descriptions and having good photos and getting the photos retouched, so it's not just like, I mean, it's not just a really crappy, like old iPhone photo that's dark, like get good photography on your listing photos, and it's really going to go far. Over communicate like with people. Like if people are asking questions, like get back to them quickly, get back to them accurately, be polite with people. Like I have a great, welcome emails that I send out. Um, and I'm probably not using all the tools as efficiently as possible because some of that stuff I could automate, but I do still like to send out kind of a welcome email because there might be a handful of things in there that are different from the previous guest. Like, in New Hampshire, for example, like everything finally thawed out, but like a month ago, there was still a sheet of ice on the ground. So, I had to add a little bit of communication about that in my messages. But, I have some great documentation I send out to everybody. I think people appreciate it. Some of them probably don't even read it, or they think it's way too much. And as you could probably tell, I'm never one to, to lose words. Like I'm always the one that's chatty. So my documents also have that information in them, but I think people appreciate it. So I put a lot of time into it.
Yeah, for sure. Just for people that maybe are interested in short-term rentals, give a high level, maybe explanation if you can, of what it looks like from when you maybe took over that first property to, how you furnished it, how you set up the systems, all that stuff to where you got it rented, and just so that people understand maybe what goes into that, right? Because it's one thing to think, okay, short-term rentals, great. I want to do that, sounds attractive, but they may not understand. They may overthink it, or they may underthink what goes into doing that. So maybe if you could just give a high level explanation of that process and what you kind of did to that property.
So, our strategy was putting short-term rentals in vacation destinations, like multi-season vacation destinations. So New Hampshire, I would consider that multi-season where we are. Like really the only kind of months that don't usually rent out, and this year they did rent, are like kind of March and April. Like we call it the mud season, because there's not quite skiing. It's not lovely snow on the branches, and it's not, beautiful summer or leaf peeping. Like in New England, leaf peeping is a big idea. It's a big thing, going up to the mountains and seeing all the leaves changing colors. So we got people, year round, or at least 3 seasons, but this year we got 4. So we like to look for that. And on the Cape, the same thing. I mean, most people think of Provincetown as the summer, but they're as a town, they're starting to expand into the shoulder seasons. And really the summer, if you can't make money with your summer, like you shouldn't be renting out places in Provincetown if you want to do it like full time. But you make money in the shoulder seasons, and then the off season, if you're able to rent it out there, it's just like cash in your pocket. So we look for destinations like that. Like I know that there's a lot of people that look for Airbnbs in city environments. It could be a little tricky though, because you have to look for local municipality laws. Like here in Boston, I don't know all the laws, but I think they passed something where you have to, if you're going to rent out your place in Boston, I think that you have to live in it as well. Like if you own a multifamily unit, like you own the whole thing, you're allowed to rent them out short term, I believe. But like most condo associations, like my association does not allow for rentals, under 3 months or 6 months or whatever the period is. And, it's against the rules to do it. So you have to kind of look out for that if you're looking to get into it. You also want to see what's the situation with the neighbors. Like you don't want to be a bad neighbor for anybody. Like if you're going into like a random suburban community outside of a major city and people don't normally do short-term rentals in that town, like you're probably going to get some neighbors that are not happy that you are now doing that. Um, we're fortunate that in New Hampshire, a lot of people rent out their places around our lake, so it's pretty common to have renters coming in. And knock wood, I haven't really had anybody complain at all about what we're doing up there. But then again, it's allowed in the town, and it's my property, so I can do what I want. New Hampshire's live free or die, so you kind of, if you don't like the answer, a lot of times you just say, screw off. But you want to be a good neighbor, right?
Yeah.
And then Provincetown, I mean, Cape Cod, everybody rents like places. So like, it's not like I bought places that it was uncommon to have short-term rentals. So like, that's one thing. Like, I think that it's a good idea to look at the markets where people are already doing short-term rentals. And then it's looking for situations where you can improve upon the property. And in both situations, we took what the previous people were doing and we really amplified it and made it much better. Like the place in New Hampshire, we bought from an older couple who they'd been going up there for like 20 years, I guess, but kind of stopped using it once their kids got older, and it was more of a liability. They weren't renting it out. It was a structurally great place. It just looked like it was a place that 60-year-olds lived in. Like one of the walls was peach, one was pink, one was yellow. Like it just didn't have the cabiny feel to it. So I looked at it and I'm like, all right, that's changing that, paint that, reface that, put this new flooring down, and literally made it into a lake house. Like it just like, it wasn't overnight. It took a couple weeks, couple months to do that. But we saw a big opportunity to say, let's just make this house at a lake, an actual lake house. In Provincetown, it's a funny story with that one because we had this like 100-year flood here in Boston a couple of years ago that just it crushed a lot of like the communities that are near the water, that are in low-lying areas. And the place in Provincetown actually is in a flood zone, but the issue was that our sump pumps in the building failed, or one of them failed. I forget the actual story, but one of them failed to the point that the basement took on like a foot or so of water, for example. And the place that we have in Provincetown, like one level is the main floor. It's like a 300 square foot room with a kitchen, dining area, and then there's a spiral staircase down to a finished basement, and that's where the bedrooms are and the bathrooms. So like most of the unit is below grade, and a lot of it took on water. So they had an insurance claim. They redid the whole thing. And I think that the previous owners just didn't want to deal with it, and they just said, hey, we're done. Like, that was really frustrating. So, let's get out. And we saw that as an opportunity. We said, hey, you don't want to do this. Like, you just redid the whole place downstairs. Like, Yeah, we'll buy it off you. We actually bought it sight unseen, which is kind of funny because we were looking at properties in Provincetown, couldn't find the right one. I saw this one hit the market. We were going to a softball tournament, and Rory is my husband. I said to him, like, I think that this is the one. Like, can you go find out more about what the deal is with the place? And Cape Cod has a separate MLS from Boston, so he actually didn't have access to the MLS. He actually reached out to the agent, and the agent gave all the different disclosures as to what happened with the unit, all the information that was in the Cape Cod MLS that we didn't even see. And we put an offer in the next day. He wrote it up to the point that I can get out of it if things look terrible during the inspection. But we went down the next week for the inspection. Everything checked out. I was like, "Yep, let's do it," and we did it. So that place, it's in another market that people are used to renting. So I think that that lends well to an Airbnb situation. I saw an opportunity to improve what was happening right there because the photos they had weren't awesome. They were not maximizing the rental potential. They were only doing a few weeks a year, and my vision was a lot more than that. Um, they had just redone a lot of the place, but we even wanted to redo it beyond that. So we added some wall paneling to make it look a little more beachy. We changed the colors, we added decor. I brought a lot of artwork that my mother's an artist, so I brought a lot of her artwork there. And I think that effort, like just trying, that goes a long way with the people that rent your place. Like they see that this isn't like a tear down. They didn't rent a crappy place. They rented a place that somebody is putting a lot of effort into making it look nice. So that's why I usually think that they treat it well, because I think that a lot of that goes into, again, what you put into it helps with what you're going to get out of it. So, that was a situation where there was just a lot of value add that I knew that I can go in there and do a better job than they were doing. And, this is the third year we're renting it, I think. And yeah, we're doing a lot better than they used to be doing with their rentals.
Yeah, very cool. And you manage it all yourself, it seems like, right? You don't have a company that runs it for you, or do you?
So we kind of, yeah. I mean, I totally get. If I'm going to scale, like I need to have people doing all this stuff for me. But it's like a thing for me to do on the side, so it's kind of fun for me to manage this stuff. We do have a property management company that are building, because it's also a condo on Cape Cod, so it's a 4-unit condo. Ours is the smallest of the 4 units in that building. So we get the benefit of being in an awesome part of town, in a really pretty building with a gorgeous garden outside, and I'm only 9% of the whole association. So I only have to pay that much. And if something bad happens, that's how much I have to pay into it. But we do have a property manager for that building, and they have been invaluable over the past year because we were having some issues with the plumbing, which is downstairs. And when you have one bathroom and people are paying a lot of money to stay there in the summertime, and there's some issues with water leakage, it gets really uncomfortable. Like, I hate having people have a bad experience. So when that happened, I was constantly giving money back to people. Like, I'm like, hey, here's dinner out for me. Let me take care of one night for you, if and when that happened during their stays. But I eventually got it fixed because we got the property manager engaged, and they kind of took over that actual repair project with their network of people. And our building had been using the property manager for off-season winter checkups to make sure that there was no burst pipes or everything was okay in the building. But then when I asked them, can we engage you throughout the year? They said, yeah, no problem. It's actually just another $50 a month just for the retainer. And then we charge like 15% on top of any work that we arrange for you, but we take care of all the work. And I was like, $50, that's it? Like, if I can't get my building to do it, like, I'm going to pay you myself for this, because like, absolutely, I want you to be helping here. And they helped. They managed, they fixed the entire situation I just described about like my bathroom issue, like where water had to pump upward, right? Because it's below grade. Mm-hmm. And there was a tank that was beneath my toilet. And every so often, if it got full, there was some water discharging into the bathroom. And we just couldn't figure out what the issue was until they kind of came in there with their people, and they were like, you got to rip it up. I'm like, all right, fine, rip it up. I don't care. Go do it. Go solve this. But they are a great service to have for that property. New Hampshire, I don't have a property manager, but my neighbor actually cleans for me. So she asked me, who I was going to be using to do the turns and the cleans because she'd be interested in doing it. And I said, great. So, I have a lot of eyes on that place too, like with my neighbor she's great. Like they're a really nice family that lives next door. She does a great job cleaning it, treats it like her own. And my in-laws down the street. So I definitely have some eyes on that place too. And I don't know how I'd feel about doing this if I couldn't get to it in a couple hours and didn't have people nearby. Like I think I'd be a little nervous. Um, so that's what's worked for us. It doesn't work for everybody. I mean, I get it. Some people invest in communities that are, halfway across the country, but you know, I'm only doing this, for fun. Like, yeah, it's wealth building. It's a lot of wealth building, but I like to be hands-on with it. So, I haven't reached the point where I need to go pick a market in the Midwest and start Airbnb properties there. Like I'm doing it because it's easy for me to do with the life that we have right now.
And that's the cool thing with real estate, right? I always say this is that you can make it whatever you want it to be, right? You want to be hands-on, you can be hands-on. You want to be hands-off, get a property manager and they'll do it, right? It's really cool. And the short-term rental thing is really, I haven't got my feet wet yet with either, I have a focus on apartments, but it's something I'm really thinking about because I think it can be a great cash flowing asset, right? And, like if you pick the right markets, like you mentioned, they're not going anywhere, right? People are always going to go on vacations in certain areas, right? And, through that, if people have been going there for centuries, right? You're sort of, insulating yourself from that risk of somewhere that's new and exciting. So I think it can be a great cash flow. So it's cool to hear you talk about that.
It's not just the cash flow too, but I mean, obviously there's a lot of ways you can make money with real estate. I mean, there's pay down of your principal on your loan. We're able to depreciate a lot too, because, you can't depreciate the land, but you can depreciate the building and any improvements that you do. So, you could offset a lot of the revenue you're taking in when it comes time to pay your taxes and declare how much you actually made on the property. And then there's appreciation. I mean, like we happen to buy into areas that have appreciated. I don't know if it's luck, but I don't think it's luck. I mean, everything's appreciating around here these days. But we just got in at the right time. I mean, the place in New Hampshire, like I'll it's all public record. I'll let you know, but we paid $192,000 for it, and I bet right now it would probably appraised for about 325, and that's just about 5 years later. And that doesn't even include the principal pay down, the cash I've taken in on it. Like, you just look at it and it's just like any other property. It just has more expenses, so that is one thing I will say. If you're going to rent to somebody, a year-round tenant, you don't have to supply cable. You don't have to supply internet. You don't have to keep the oil tank filled. I mean, they're supposed to, but you don't have to do a lot of the additional things that I supply. Like I have towels there. I have sheets. I have cleaning supplies. We have firewood. We have, cable, internet, everything. So like, all that toilet paper, paper towels, all that stuff, that does add up. Those are expenses that we've just budgeted in. I mean, it just works into the budget because you could charge a premium nightly when you're renting it out short term, but there are additional expenses that are involved with it too. But, in the end, the numbers work. I mean, for me, they work so far.
Yeah. Yeah. Very cool, man. Very cool. Well, thanks for diving into all that. That's really cool. And like I said, I'm really interested in short-term rentals. But as this show is called Wrestling with Real Estate, and I think, you said yourself, you're a little bit of a wrestling fan, so this part should be pretty easy for you.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. That's good. That always helps. This is part where I ask wrestling-related real estate questions. And the first one is, what would your wrestling name be?
And that's the one I haven't thought of yet. But, I'm going to, can I use your old name? Like, can I be your sidekick or something?
Okay.
Did you ever have a manager when you were Mason Ryan?
No, I didn't. I wish I did. That would have been fun. I was.
See, yeah. I'm not a big guy like you. So like, I'd be more of that annoying manager, like that throws the megaphone in the ring, like Jimmy Hart used to do. I'll be Igor the investor.
That's brilliant. Igor the investor. I like that. You follow me around with your briefcase.
Yeah, I like a Renard Shyster. Yeah, I wrote an article. I'll have to send it to you about, the ultimate real estate wrestling team. And I wrote it like, a couple of years ago for Rory's real estate company's blog. And, it was just all, the fabulous Moolah is going to be on there. She'll be financing along with IRS, like the Undertaker's there to, to dig the foundation, like, just I'll
Brilliant.
send it over to you.
Okay, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Every wrestler has a special move. What is your special move in real estate?
So I think it's going to have to be the charmer, right? So I mentioned earlier in this that I think I do a good job with customer service and communication with people. And I think that's super important when you're doing short-term rentals. You want to get good reviews. Like I just checked, like I've been a superhost for 15 times in a row on Airbnb. And I think that a lot of the criteria that goes into it is because of the experience that you create for the people. So, it's not over communication. It's communicating enough, knowing that you're always available. It's giving all the right information. It's being honest. Like I never ever want to purport that my property does X and then they show up and they get Z. Like that is just a recipe for a bad review. And you don't want bad reviews on your account because they won't take them off. I've tried. I have one 3-star review that I deserved, frankly. I totally forgot about a turn, and meaning like they were showing up the same day as somebody else and I forgot to tell my neighbor, and they showed up, the place wasn't cleaned, and I felt like awful. It was, I deserved my 3 stars that time, but everything else has been 4 and 5. But I think that the over communication, so my patented move is going to be, I'm going to charm you to death, right? And I'm going to make sure that, you have a great experience at our places.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. What's been the biggest body slam you've taken in real estate investing?
Well, right after we bought the place in New Hampshire, not 3 months later, we had a pipe burst upstairs. That was not fun at all. I had renters there, kind of, thank God, but I felt bad for them. And there was just water everywhere. Like we learned that there was a pipe that was in an area where there was a soffit vent and it was just exposed to the outside. And the previous owners knew about this. They just didn't disclose it and we didn't know to ask, but we got it fixed. 6 weeks later, we banged through the drywall. Like I could have used you. You could have just pounded on the drywall, like, and gotten right in there. But we banged through the drywall, see what was going on. We fixed it all ourselves. My husband's he's actually super handy with getting things done. And he kind of took that project on himself, and I helped with the painting, which is really what I'm good at. But that was like right when I was getting started, like that happened. And you're like, you get so discouraged. You're like, oh my God, I just bought this place. 8 months later, I just had a pipe burst. Like I'd rented to 2 or 3 people already, and that's it. You're like, oh God, like why did this happen? And the same thing happened in Provincetown. Like a year into it, you start getting this water leak and you start second guessing, like, should I do this? I mean, last summer, there were a couple times that I was like, just having a fit where, you're trying to put the baby to sleep and like, people calling you with like an issue and you're like, this is why I should get a property manager or sell the place. Right. But you work through it, so like, I would say those are stupid little things that happen. And you shouldn't let it discourage you if, you have this whole grandiose plan and you just get this like massive wrench thrown right into it right at the start. Just overcome it and just move on. It doesn't mean the plan was bad. It just means that you had a bad situation happen.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. That's a great point. So was there a moment that you were standing on the top rope getting ready to jump, but you were too scared? What was it and how did you overcome it?
So the moments I could think about with that, I still haven't jumped though. And it's because we've been looking and looking and looking to buy a multifamily property here in the area to do a long-term rental. And we just haven't found the right one. It's gotten so competitive also. And, having a almost 2-year-old, you have a young child also, you could attend to how much time goes into, investing in your child. I just don't have time. Like, so working full time, trying to find like the right rental property, like there's so many opportunities that you see that you want to pull the trigger on, but you just you just can't get it all together. Like, and I see these things over and over and over. That would be a great one. You go tour it and then there's 7 offers on it. And then you're like, all right, well, that one's not meant to be. I mean, we've put offers in through the years, and, they haven't come true because a lot of people are putting offers in. So I got to say that like I look down at everyone, meaning look down from the top rope at all the multi-investors. And I'm so envious of the people that have the time to really go forward and get it all done. Like, a lot of younger investors, I think, that don't have kids or the commitments, like a full-time, W-2 job and everything. Maybe they have a little bit more time to take a lot more swings. Um, I don't have that, unfortunately. So, but it's okay because I don't need to buy everything, right? I just need to buy what makes me good or makes me happy.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what I look down at from the top rope.
You'll get there. You'll get there. And it's not a
I
race,
hope
right?
so.
It's not a race, right? You'll get there eventually. It's, it's
It's
just,
not, but man, like I'm looking to build a place right now. Like we have land across the way from our current Airbnb, and it's trying to find a builder is tough. But I've been going at it for about 6 months trying to find like the right builder for that spot. But I'm determined to get that done this year, and I think I'm really close. So
okay.
I'll come back and fill you.
Yeah, I was going to say we'll have to get you back and have you tell us all about that one. But man, I appreciate you taking the time today and talking about short-term rentals and kind of how you've done it and some lessons you've learned along the way. So a really interesting story, and thank you for sharing all of that. But before we go, if people want to reach out to you, people want to find out more about what you've got going on, how can they do that?
So a couple ways. You can find me. The easiest way is on Bigger Pockets. So my name is Jason, Muth. So it's spelled M like Michael and T like Thomas. You could reach me at my Gmail account, which is my name at Gmail. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn. Like I'm pretty easy to find if you Google, quote unquote, Jason Muth. Although there is another Jason Muth that does real estate that's out in San Jose or something like that. Okay. That's not me. I'm the one in Boston. So feel free to reach out if you have questions. Like I love connecting with people, especially on Bigger Pockets. We really miss doing meetups here in the Boston area. Meetups and networking is just such a home run in the real estate world. And we can't wait to get back to doing it once it's safe once again. But yeah, if anyone has questions about that, like I'm in the forums. I'm sure that you're on Bigger Pockets if you're listening to this. So find me there and let's chat.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, I know you got to go pick up your daughter now, but I appreciate you taking the time on this. It was a fun conversation. We'll have to do it again sometime soon. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Barry. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.